You're listening to Oman FM, your national English radio station. Talal Al Shahri here with you. We're very lucky to have the leader of one of the biggest names of Oman that is known across the world. That is Oman Air. We have its very own CEO, Con Korfiatis, joining us today to delve deeper into what is actually happening there behind the curtains and what we have to expect for the future. Welcome, Mr. Korfiatis. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hi,
today.
Talal. It's a pleasure to be here, and thank you for the opportunity.
The pleasure is all ours. We'll congratulate you in advance on almost completing 2 years as your tenure as the CEO of Oman Air. And what a time when you came in 2 years ago to take lead of our national carrier. So much to look into, so much to discuss, so much people are curious about. But let's start off with one important thing for us to set the stage is, who is Con Korfiatis? Where are you from? Where did you start off?
So one, I have a strange name, and it was particularly growing up in Australia, which explains my accent. And my name is far from being Australian. It's European. Mum and Dad were Greek immigrants to Australia. For Dad in the late 50s, for Mum in the early 60s, and they were the only ones to emigrate from their families. And they came to Australia for a new opportunity. Greece was a poor place, and they came from a small village on a small island, and so they made Australia home. I have a sister, but the rest of the family, the immediate family, cousins, uncles and aunts are all in Greece. Born in Sydney, educated in Melbourne. I've got an economics degree. I started life as a finance guy and at EY in Australia, and I thought I would die perhaps a CFO if I was lucky one day. And so they're sort of the roots to if you like, an immigrant working class family who was foreign to the country. Mum, until the day she died, never spoke good English, even after all the years that she lived there. But it was a tremendous place of opportunity, beautiful country to grow up. And I am where I am today because of our humble beginnings I had in Australia, both from an immigrant family and a child, and growing up there, and the exposure that I had.
Okay. Now, you mentioned that you started off in finance, and what made the switch happen? How did you enter the world of aviation?
Well, I mentioned EY, and I started as an auditor, if you can believe that, and I did that for a few years. And then I had an opportunity to move to the consulting side of the business. And as a consultant, I ended up in an industry specialization called travel and leisure, which meant for me airlines, hotels and casinos were my clients. And I was absolutely infatuated, if you like, with the aviation industry. It was complex. It was dynamic. It's always changing. It had technical operational elements. It had digital elements. It had fancy marketing, and it provided travel, which is something that every human being in the world has a passion for. So I thought, what a unique and wonderful industry. And so initially, I got to know the business side of it, which is what you do as a consultant, and the strategy side of it, and that was my initial exposure. And I felt, God, I'd love to be on the other side of the desk executing, not just advising, and decided I didn't want to be a lifelong consultant. I was only in my late 20s at that stage, and so I looked for an opportunity to see if I can get on the other side of the desk and get into an airline, and that came using my finance background, initially in a finance role in one of the national airlines of Australia called Ansett, which doesn't exist anymore, but it was the largest domestic airline at the time. It was about 80 or 90 aircraft, and that was my chance to get on the other side, and I haven't looked back. I've been in the industry ever since my late 20s, so it's been a long time. I've been doing this for more than 30 years now.
Fantastic. Now, so you started off domestically in Australia. Since then, you've barely been back home. What made you take the international leap?
Well, I didn't. I said I thought I'd die a CFO. I also thought I'd die living out my days in Australia, and I had no intention of leaving offshore. Might surprise you to hear, as a son of immigrants, I only had my first passport at the age of 30. I hadn't travelled. So I joined an airline. I didn't even have a passport at that stage in my life. I'd never left the shores of Australia. So I thought this was it, and this is where I'd work out my whole career. And along came a CEO who also became a mentor and a close friend, and he's somebody who's gone on to really big things. He's one of the big aviation guys. And, I worked for him for a little while, and he said to me, you have potential to be a CEO one day, and but we need to groom you more. And at that stage, this airline, which was initially domestic, had started an international operation. So I was initially thrown into that business as a chief commercial as well as a chief financial officer. So I didn't let go of the finance, but he wanted me to start learning the rest of the business. And he said, the way you might get to a CEO one day is you need to know a bit about everything, and you need to have worked in all facets of the business because it is complex. So to be a good airline CEO, you cannot come through one silo. So he opened my eyes firstly to working outside of finance. And then there came an opportunity for me to actually go and have an overseas experience. And then I was the CCO for a new international airline, so I started traveling, and then eventually I went overseas and had to learn sales skills by running one of the countries. That was Indonesia. That was my first international post. And from there, it led to an opportunity to actually go and work for Singapore Airlines in marketing and loyalty. So from there on, it's just been an international adventure, and not just cross-cultural and cross-country, but also cross-discipline in terms of the things that I've done. I've really been quite blessed in this industry.
I'm sure. During your career, you've spent now about a bit over 9 years here in the Middle East, in Saudi Arabia and in Oman. So let's talk about your first move to Saudi Arabia. You actually founded an airline.
Right.
So tell us about that.
Tremendous opportunity. I think that was my sense of adventure in accepting that role. This was 2016, and it was not the Saudi that we know today. It was a different Saudi. There was no tourism. There was a lot of things that are there today that weren't there 10 years ago. And the national carrier, Saudia, and I worked for the group, was looking to establish its own low-cost airline. There was a privately run low-cost airline in the country, and the nature of the low-cost airlines is they can be nimble, lower cost base, chipping at the ankles, if you like, of the legacy national carrier. And they felt that it made sense to have a play in that. So I was asked to go over and found a low-cost airline, and I did. It's called Flydeal, and we established that from nothing, effectively. It was here's a desk and a laptop and a mobile phone, and let's get an airline going. And 10 months later, we launched Flydeal as a fully fledged airline with engineers and pilots and cabin crews and aircraft and selling systems and a brand and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I've been blessed to do that a few times in other jurisdictions before Saudi, but it was unique doing it in Saudi because a true low-cost airline was new. A lot of people saying, well, Saudis are spoiled, they're affluent, will they really take to this product? And they did. And they did in numbers and much faster than we ever imagined. And we couldn't bring the aircraft on fast enough for the growth. And if you look at Flydeal today, and it's been flying since 17, it took us nearly a year to get it going. So that's coming up to 9 years old this year. It flies over 10 million passengers a year, which is significantly even larger than Oman Air, which is around for 30 or 40 years. So, tremendous opportunity. Saw all the changes in Saudi. It was an absolutely wonderful place to live over all of those years, and just to witness everything that happened, just not with the airline, but across the country as well. What a life opportunity it was. And from that came my love for the Middle East. We decided to stay and make this region home post finishing up in Saudi in 2023.
Fantastic. So now we come to the moment that led you here to Oman.
Right.
Recovering from COVID, financial crisis, change of leadership. Oman Air was known to be a financial hole in many regards. It was losing money year after year after year. And it's a very big obstacle to tackle everything that was happening in the aviation industry here in Oman, especially with all those blows one after the other, let alone what was happening before.
Right.
What made you even agree to come over and choose this as a project?
Well, I think firstly, to work in this industry, you need to be a little bit of a masochist. So I think that must be somewhere in my DNA. I also, I think when I went to Saudi, people said to me, you're going where and why? And, all these external perceptions which you get from media, none of which were true. And it was a wonderful experience, but that's me. I like building things. I like fixing things. The most boring job you could put me in, and I wouldn't last very long, is something that's working very, very well, and it's a case of keeping the lights on. Oman Air was anything but keeping the lights on. But the latter part of my airline career, I've been much more focused on the opportunities to build or to fix. I get much more fulfillment out of the challenge out of that. I finished in Saudi. I actually took a bit of a sabbatical. We moved home to the UAE, and we were living there, and this opportunity came along. And quite honestly, the airline had a horrible reputation from a business point of view. This industry talks and people national talk, and its results were well known, and it was considered a basket case financially in the industry. So from that point of view, some would say run for the hills, and for me it was like, what an interesting opportunity it might be to try and fix this. I was surprised, and I'll say I was blessed that actually what was not broken is that Oman, and it's not surprising given the nature of Omanis and the country and everything you see around you, actually had built a really nice airline from a customer point of view, and it had been winning awards for many years, and all of that credit go to my predecessors over the years and the work that they've put into the airline. But as a business, it was completely broken, and I would say for the size of the airline, as broken as anything I've seen anywhere in the world. And I think that opportunity to try and fix what many would have said is the unfixable, because it's been tried for a lot of many years and no one was able to achieve it. It's actually what inspired me to come and do this.
Let's take a walk through what you've been doing for the last 2 years. How do you fix the unfixable? What's step number one?
Well, first you've got to believe it's fixable. So I think partly it's a belief system. Look, honestly, there's a lot of things that have to come together, and some of them are in your control and some of them are outside of your control. I did my homework. I didn't come into this and said whatever and wherever it happens, it doesn't matter. I had a belief that it could be. I met His Excellency, our chairman, the minister, the vice chairman and the board members, and I saw their passion for this being a success and their commitment for this being a success. And as a CEO, if you don't have that support at the board level, then you're on a path to nothing. And I saw the belief in their own minds that this is possible. It just needed a team and some leadership to come in and actually deliver that. And it convinced me that this actually has a chance of working, and it inspired me to take on the challenge. And I came here with great anticipation, some trepidation, but a belief that we could do something.
I want to walk through the steps because so much has been changed during your tenure here. We've seen a restructuring. We've seen a change in airplanes. We've seen new destinations. We've seen some destinations removed. We've seen just a lot of moves happening from the outside, from the customer's point of view,
right? Which,
again, as you mentioned, has generally been favorable when it comes to looking at the airline, looking at the experiences we get if we compare it to other airlines, but we know what was happening in the background. How do you come about balancing this? I have a million questions. Okay, step by step. First off, what was your first move when it came to bringing it out of the financial hole? What needed to be done first?
Root causes, basically diagnostic, and the board was obviously acutely aware that this was a financial disaster. There's a reason I was brought in, so it wasn't a revelation I brought to the organisation. It was acknowledged, and it was acknowledged it needed a fix. There were obviously some reports from subject matter experts and consultants who came to look through and said, these things look broken, these things look broken, these things look broken. But having been around this, really management delivers at the end of the day, and if you have to subscribe to what needs fixing. So you do your own diagnostic. You bring in skills where you don't have them. You find skills within the organisation that haven't been deployed properly and enable them and empower them to come on the journey together. And then you work out, what are the fixes functionally, and functionally means all sorts of things. It could be processes, it could mean automation, it could mean renegotiating contracts. It could be looking at, the backbone of the airline it was the original sort of first step, and that is, what's our network? Our losses come clearly from flying to places, and not all routes are made the same, and some lose a lot more than others. What's the demographics on those routes? What's our average fare on those routes? It varies from route to route. How well are we filling the aircraft? What's the quality of the revenue that's coming from that? And what's our cost against that? And where are we hemorrhaging the most? And so, not too different to your body. If you take a cut in the arm and it's bleeding, you put a Band-Aid where it's bleeding the most, right? You don't go and tape the whole body immediately. So it was a little bit like that. I guess we had lots of cuts on the body, if I continue with that analogy. So we had lots of things to put Band-Aids on, and then it was a case, how to repair them. And then, it's complicated, and it's a long story, and we'd need to have an extremely long session to get through it. But it's what makes it interesting. I touched on the complexity of the business as to what inspires me. There's so many things to fix. The beauty of it is it's got 30, well, beauty is probably too nice a word, but having been broken for so many years, from a business point of view, it wasn't difficult to find out which stones to turn over and where you had to fix things. It's easy to say, okay, we can identify them. The fix is the challenge, and the fix is where the heavy work goes in. What I'm really pleased is, ordinarily in a transformation like this would be a 5 to 7 year journey. We're only just about 2 years into it. This is our third year, and our North Star, which is an EBIT break-even and an operating cash flow break-even, we actually hope to achieve this year. So within 3 years. And I haven't seen that done before. And at the same time, what's really pleasing is not only are we fixing the business within that, we haven't forgotten the customer. We've been investing in the network in a smart way. We've been increasing our flying without having to take on more aircraft. We've improved apps, website. We've improved the quality of the revenue, and we're focused on customers who come to Oman and get off the aircraft and spend here and make a contribution to the economy, not people who transit through an airport for an hour or two and go off somewhere else, which is what most of our traffic used to be. I mean, I can go on for a long time, Talal, but I'm just trying to give you a summarised version. But there's so much we've done, and there's so much still to do. And that's what makes this opportunity energizing and exciting.
If your North Star comes through this year, this will be the first time Oman Air ever breaks even.
So I mean, Oman Air has roots in being a private airline and operating turboprop aircraft. So I think maybe in years gone by, long ago, it may have been profitable in what we call the modern era, i.e. the type of airline that we are today, and our records go back 15 plus years. Looking all the way back, we've never had an EBITDA break even, we've never had an EBIT break even, and we've never carried this percentage of point-to-point traffic, which I think is important to the country, not just the airline. It's a tremendous movement of the needle in a very short space of time.
Let's talk about those points-to-points, your destinations.
Right.
Your destinations have been growing. Just a few days ago, as of the time of this interview, you launched a new route, which is Muscat Taif. And Taif, of course, is your fifth Saudi destination right now in Oman Air. Why are you spreading more in Saudi? And how do we expect it to... is there a true expectation of there being some heavy traffic there with the Saudi destinations?
In fairness, our route strategy of one where we try to hedge our risk and not be overexposed to one particular destination or country. And I think that's just good business, because at the end of the day, things can be cyclical in this industry. Different things can happen, and if you're overly invested in one. Saudi is not getting special attention by itself. Yes, it's a fifth route in a country. It's a nearby neighbour, but don't forget, Saudi has something like 25 airports. I think 20 of them are international. So 5 is not even a big coverage. And if you look at our neighbours next door, they fly to far more points even within Saudi Arabia. So there is an opportunity there, and we do extremely well in Saudi Arabia. And Taif has started fantastic, and our forward bookings are very healthy. So we're really, really pleased. But don't forget also, in the last 12, 14 months, we've started Rome in Europe. We've started Amsterdam in Europe. We've introduced a double daily in Europe. We're going to a year-round service on Zurich in Europe. We've introduced Copenhagen flights via Baghdad in Europe. So that continent is not forgotten, and that's important to us as well. In the Far East, even though we haven't added new destinations, we've been adding frequencies to Bangkok, frequencies to Phuket, for example. We have intentions on adding more frequencies to Indonesia and to Kuala Lumpur. Kuala Lumpur, we had added frequencies. We've announced flights to Singapore starting in July this year. And we've got some more announcements for later this year about flights to Northern Asia. So that's also important to us. I think within this region, we continue to remain relevant. We've grown our presence in Dubai, for example. And I think to Doha and to Kuwait, we've increased some frequencies. So it's not... We don't have a single country focus. We look for the opportunities. What do we look for? We look where there's a healthy point-to-point market. We're not interested in bringing 90% transit traffic. We could fly to many other places which we would just fill with transit traffic, but it's low yield, so it doesn't bring a good quality of revenue to the airline, and it certainly doesn't contribute much to the Oman economy. So, when we look at routes and the new routes that we fly where we're expanding the frequency, we look for routes where it has a very heavy point-to-point bias, some transit as well, because we can't do it all with point-to-point, but enough point-to-point that it actually makes sense.
So, while expanding to the destinations you mentioned, there's been a lot of back and forth in regards to the number of airplanes in your fleet. So initially you sold some, recently you bought some. You've contracted a company to run some routes, including the Salalah-Muscat route. What's the current strategy when it comes to your airplanes?
Yeah, I can understand if you're looking from the outside, it looks a bit strange and you're trying to say, hey, what's the story here, right? There's growth opportunity, but you shrunk the fleet and, you're doing this and you're doing that and you've leased in an aircraft from somebody outside for the short term. There is a method in all the madness here. Firstly, for a small airline, we had a very complex fleet. In our wide bodies, we had 20 wide body aircraft and there were 6 different subtypes. From a maintenance and an operation point of view, very expensive and very, very messy and complicated. Also, 10 of those wide bodies were aging A330 aircraft, and we owned them, which is kind of weird for an airline our size to own a lot of aircraft, but we actually owned that fleet. And the challenge was, because it was a bit more than mid-age, and in the harsh environment in which we live, those assets would have deteriorated in market value very, very quickly going forward. And the delays in the pipeline of deliveries of the new aircraft, which we were suffering with our 787s as well, but we were starting to catch up on that front. We still have an order to come, by the way. We can talk about that later. But, what we found is these are now at the prime time to dispose of them without having a massive loss on these aircraft, because the new aircraft deliveries around the world were being delayed, and there was a demand which will subside as the manufacturers get on top of their delivery challenges that they've had since COVID. So it was too good an opportunity to say no to. So we cashed out of those aircraft very well. It helped us too, because we have massive debt on our balance sheet. With our local creditors, we were massively in arrears. It enabled us to address some of that as well, and to put some cash flow into the business as well, to do some of the investment in the technology that we've done, in the expansion that we've done. We've got new aircraft that were scheduled to come as well, so it wasn't that there wasn't some aircraft coming in the other direction. There were deliveries coming. You touched on leasing in an aircraft from somebody outside to operate. That was driven by issues we've had with the new generation narrow-body aircraft, which experiencing, let's say, life cycle challenges. The engines need to go into the shops sooner than what they were meant to be for servicing and restoration, and the shops being flooded because there is an engine problem both on the narrow-body new generation Airbus and Boeing products. Everybody has this problem. It's not something that's just for Oman Air. The workshops are so overwhelmed with business, it's taking them forever to get the engines back. So we were in a peak period and we were short on capacity. Some engines were coming off earlier than expected, and others that were meant to be coming back from the shops were coming back later and later to what was originally promised. So we had bookings and we needed to fulfill those bookings. So we took some short-term lift. It's not unusual for airlines to work with short-term lift, particularly for peaks, because otherwise, if you don't have flying for them in the non-peaks, it's a overhead cost that sits there. So it's a smart use, agile use of capacity to, whether you've got excess demand in certain parts of the year. So it's actually worked really well for us, and it's helped us recover some challenges with the fleet that had engines in for repair.
Okay. How many have you just received, and how many more in your next order?
So we just took our latest and newest aircraft just yesterday, actually.
Congratulations.
Thank you. It's a Boeing 737 MAX, and it's the last of our order book for our narrow bodies. So all up now we have, excuse me, We have 17 MAX aircraft. We also have 6 of the older generation 737NG still in our fleet. The plan is we will, over the next 1, 2, 3 years, be replacing those with newer aircraft also. We don't have an order book for that, so we will either go to the leasing market or look at an order book. On the wide bodies, we took 2 787s during 2025. Our next delivery is not until late 27, early 28, and over that period until 29, we have 6 more 787s coming. So we've got substantial pipeline still for the wide bodies, enough for our needs. So you don't expect us to see us ordering any more wide bodies. We've got 6 more coming to add to the fleet of 10 that we already have. So that's a 60% growth. But on the narrow bodies, definitely from next year, we're going to need more lift. I think through the peak this year, we'll also need a bit more lift, which we might do through the short-term lease market, as we've done before. But from next year onwards, we will look to take delivery of more of our own aircraft as well to grow the narrow body fleet. Business is good. I think the commercial success has come a bit faster than what we thought it would. So we're optimistic and we're moving a bit earlier perhaps than what we thought. But that's a nice problem to have rather than be burdened with excess capacity, which is what we had when we had all those extra wide bodies in the fleet 22 months ago.
Salalah-Muscat. You have many flights there that go every single day. You're ferrying thousands of people up and down from Salalah to Muscat and vice versa every day. And for many people, this is the only real way to get to the capital city. Every few months, we see upheaval online. People complaining about the number of flights or people complaining about the ticket prices. More than once, we've seen screenshots of, look, my one-way ticket to Muscat is going to cost me 160 Omani riyals. If we go over to Europe, you can pay $15 and take a business class ticket from Istanbul to London,
Not anymore, you can't, but no. Okay, let's go there.
So let's clear this up a little bit. Yeah. Oman Air has been making statements in the past in this regard, but I want to elaborate a bit more. What is happening with the Salalah-Muscat routes, and what would your answer be to the people who are faring up and down and saying that the prices are either too high or changes need to be made?
So, and I'm glad you asked the question because you're right. We speak and we give some answers, and the noise goes away, and then it comes back again. But I like facts. I don't like opinions because I can give you lots of opinions, but the numbers speak for themselves. Firstly, it's not only an important route for domestic purposes for the country, it's also an important route for Oman Air. We're heavily invested in the Salalah route. We fly lots of capacity there, and we continue to invest in that. So in capacity terms, in 25 over 24, year on year, we flew an extra almost 20% additional capacity. And the passenger numbers went up about 17-18%. Through the Kharif season, we flew 30% additional capacity and we filled those seats. This is in 25 I'm talking about. Into 2026, we will grow the capacity by another 20%, and we'll be adding at least 20 to 30% more capacity for the Kharif season as well. So in terms of being, how can I say, a responsible national carrier, we are catering to demand and the growth in the demand by investing in and investing in the capacity. On the fares, sorry.
If I might just
please
jump in here.
Please.
Is it true that, this is a common rumor that goes around, is it true that the Salalah-Muscat route is a financial hole or was a financial hole?
No, none of our routes. I mean, we're not break even yet, so we lose money everywhere. It's just a matter of how much we lose.
In comparison to other routes?
I would say it varies at times. There are times of the year where it's a big hole. There are times of the year that it's less a big hole. Through the Kharif season, it's less a big hole. So, it varies depending on the time of the year. And sometimes you have good years and sometimes you have bad years. It moves around. People assume that everything is linear when you fly an aircraft from point A to point B. It is not. And people assume the planes are full and therefore you must be making a lot of money. And I can assure you that's a wrong assumption in this industry. It's bizarre. It's not. It doesn't make. It's not logic, but it's the reality. So the easiest thing you can do is fill a plane. By the way, I just drop all our airfares to $1 and I can bring 100 aircraft and fill them tomorrow morning. But you can't sustain that financially. So look, nothing makes us money. But we're working on reducing our cost base to help that, as well as the revenue improvements. And on Salalah, that is not a route where we're doing it through improving the quality of the revenue. So I'm going to go to the airfares now, because that tells the other side of the story. On the airfare side, in a lot of the other overseas markets, I've said we've restructured capacity to try to find a higher quality of revenue and focused on point to point. Clearly, that's not how we run Salalah. Salalah is in a different bucket. There's a national service element to it. But we are trying to be as fiscally responsible as we can in flying that route. So we have had fixed fares on Salalah now for a couple of years, and they haven't moved. They haven't gone up at all. Our cost of operating the airline has gone up massively in the last 2 years as an industry globally, and we're not immune to that as Oman Air. But we've kept our airfares, again with that national service hat on, the same. So you can fly year-round to Salalah as an Omani for 64 riyals return. And in the peak Kharif season, it's actually even cheaper rather than more expensive. It's 54. And it's as long as there's a seat available on the flight, you can book that airfare. It doesn't go up because there's only one seat left. It is fixed, and it's fixed for the year. If I look at the average fare on a return basis on that, and I compare to, and I'll go to your European example earlier, and you go to Europe, forget the headline fares when you see $15. When you put the taxes, blah, 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 $15 becomes $90, right? So in the context of, and we benchmark and we see, and I've worked in multiple countries, this is the cheapest domestic airfare I've seen anywhere I've worked. And I'm including Indonesia. And the income per capita in Indonesia is a hell of a lot lower than what it is in Oman. So what I'm saying is we are very responsible on our airfares. We're not taking advantage here. They're not at a level where, if normal commercial dynamics were in play here, that airfare would probably be double what we're actually charging. But we're not here to print money on Salalah. There is a national service element. It's a long country geographically. The air services are important. It's not a short drive to say there's alternative forms of transport. And I think we're being very responsible in terms of the way we're doing that. We've committed to these airfares for 26 again. There's no changes coming. It's remarkable at times, even though there's another carrier which has a cheaper business model, that our airfares are actually cheaper at times as well.
You have, when it comes to domestic flights, another competitor here in Oman, which is Oman Air.
Right.
And some of you sometimes share the same routes, like Salalah-Muscat. Sometimes Oman Air, for example, has Muscat Duqm, which Oman Air doesn't. Oman Air might have other routes as well. How do you work together? Is there any form of cooperation between the two national airlines?
There is some. I would say 2-3 years ago, there probably was almost zero, and it was probably not a very constructive relationship. It's much better today than what it used to be, and we have co-chairs. We do, I think naturally, we don't collude on things because we can't, there's competition laws here. But we do look at routes, and where we see they may be in a route with a demographic that doesn't make sense to us, and us putting in capacity wouldn't be good business for us, we might put in less or not put in anything at all. I think they may do a little bit of that. I think where we can provide a better service by code sharing on the flights, we do. So we have some code share on their flights, have some code share on our flights. So there is some cooperation, and I think the relationship is healthier than it's been in its history in that from that context. But having said that, you can't fully cooperate because at the end of the day, we each put the money into different pockets. We don't have the same shareholders, and so you have to be. Each of us is selfish in terms of we have to look after our own businesses first. So we don't sacrifice our financial outcomes for their sake, and they don't sacrifice their financial outcomes for our sake. So there are limitations to how far the cooperation can go when you're separate companies with different shareholders.
Speaking of code sharing, I believe this was started before you joined Oman Air, but starting to work towards entering the Oneworld Alliance, which we are now part of.
Right.
Can you just touch on what the actual benefits are for the airline and for the customers for being part of the Oneworld Alliance that includes Qatar Airways, Japan Airlines, British Airways, Alaskan Airways? Many airlines are part of it. What do we benefit from this?
So something your viewers and listeners may not know, the Oneworld Alliance basically covers about 96% of the routes in the world. So you have an enormous footprint there that alliance brings to bear. Oman Air, with its own aircraft today, flies 45 routes. With the code share and partnerships we had pre-Oneworld, that took it to about 90 routes. The day we joined the Oneworld Alliance last year, it became 900 routes overnight. And that is a footprint that there's no way you would ever emulate with your own aircraft. We could never go from 45 to 900 routes with our own aircraft. So what that means is we with Oman Air and with the Oneworld relationships, you have a global platform for travel, regardless of where you want to go. We believe that the airlines that are in the Oneworld Alliance are high-quality airlines, so they are brands that we are proud to be associated with. So it's not just a footprint, but it's the culture and the customer ethos of those airlines that we think is also relevant to our customers. I think it enables us to have a far more stronger loyalty program in Sindabad. Sindabad, when it can only offer 45 routes, is not as appealing as other airlines who may ask you to transit via another place, but can enable you a global platform to earnings of points and accumulation of points and status. Now we can compete with that. So you can bank in Sindabad, you can earn your tier statuses in Sindabad, and you can enjoy the benefits of those status privileges across all the Oneworld airlines to all of those 100 routes and all of that global footprint that we have. In terms of accessing traffic, for example, we do tremendous business, and I'm just going to go to Australia because it's something obviously I have an affinity with. We do tremendous business in Australia, and we don't fly there. And we have Australian customers in big numbers who take either Qantas or Malaysia Airlines, Oneworld partners, flights into different points in the Far East that we fly to, and then transfer onto an Oman Air aircraft. And they come to Oman, they may go to Europe or come back and stop in Oman on the way back. So there are all these sorts of opportunities. The US market and North America we see as a potential huge opportunity as well. American Airlines is the largest airline in the world, has a huge amount of capacity with BA across the Atlantic, and we see opportunities to build tourism from as far away as North America, using the Oneworld Alliance over different European ports connecting with Oman Air directly into Oman. So coming one stop into Oman. So that's the platform we never had before we entered the Oneworld Alliance. So we're really excited to be a part of it.
One thing that we haven't touched on is the actual experience people get in the airplanes when it comes to being welcomed, sitting down, the food you're given, the movies you can watch. Some things have changed. The change has been noticeable. What, as the CEO of Oman Air, what are you currently offering, and will we be seeing any changes in the near future in regards to the customer experience?
Yeah. Well, I mentioned earlier in our discussion that one thing I did inherit was a really lovely customer proposition the airline has had. This airline has been winning international awards for many years, and we continue to. We're particularly proud of a particular award we've won in the last 2 years, which came with some more work we started doing in terms of some of the changes you referred to earlier on the product. We were awarded Apex World Class. So World Class means you're not even sort of the 5-star. It's above the 5-star. So you have the 3, the 4, and the 5-star airlines. There's a category just called You're Just World Class. There's 6 airlines in that group, and we're one of them. And we won it for 25. And you don't win it once and keep that accreditation. Every year you're audited again, and you have to deliver the standards. And it's subject to customer research that the Apex organisation does as well. And so people drop out of that, and people come into that. We got it again in 2026, and we're really, really proud of that. That is a global major award for us and a recognition. Having said that, this is a very rapidly moving, and there's always things happening with technology and seats and in-flight entertainment and food. And you get it right and you do a good job doesn't mean it's right for life. It's something you constantly have to continue to invest in. You touched on changes made over the last year. We've reinvested in service training. We've changed the concepts and how we do our service. We've introduced new menus. We've actually, in business class, introduced an Omani menu, and you can have an Omani rocker set menu on board in business class, and that is really, really really popular, not just with our Omani customers, but also with the foreign customers. And we all love and we're passionate about our food, who don't probably know what an Omani, for a lot of them, don't know what an Omani cuisine looks like. And so we have that on board. Right now, we're in the midst of making selections on the next generation hardware on board our aircraft. So I'm talking new business class seats, new economy class seats, the latest in-flight entertainment, the latest technology for that, internet connectivity, which we don't have, and in today's world you've got to provide going forward. So these are all things we're looking at that right now. So I would expect we will start to see them rolling out within 12 months and over the next few years going ahead. So it's constantly evolving. On our narrow-body aircraft, the business class we have on board, our narrow bodies today, was designed for about up to a 3-4 hour sector and no more than that. But what we've found is that size aircraft is very good for opening new routes. So, for example, we're flying it to Moscow. We are flying to Rome, we are flying to Munich, we are flying to Phuket and to Kuala Lumpur with this aircraft. So these are long distances, and the premium product was not designed for that. So expect to see, and we're evaluating the options for this right now, flat beds even on the narrow body aircraft for the longer haul flights. So the whole customer proposition and remaining relevant and being, at the front and remaining competitive, we have the best benchmarks in the world live right next door to Oman, right? The best full service carriers who are putting the best investment into the latest and greatest are right next door, and this is our competition. So it keeps us how can I say on our toes, and we have to be aware and we have to remain relevant. So we're really excited about our history and what we've done in this space and all the recognition we've had over the years, but it doesn't mean therefore the job is done and we're not doing anything on that front. We have over the last 2 years, and we will continue and take it to a whole other level in the next few years moving forward.
Okay. You mentioned the differences, the fact that there are going to be new seats for economy and business, and the new entertainment system and the internet and all of that. And you did mention the new Omani menu that you have in business class. But will we be seeing any changes or improvements in economy food in the near future?
Our customers are telling us that we need to do a bit more work in the economy cabin, and we are. And that is a project for this year to redo the economy class menus on our flights as well. So we started last year with the business class. Actually, we started the end of the year before. We've been rolling it out across the network. This year is the plan to look at what we're doing in economy class.
Anything else you'd like to leave our listeners and viewers with as we come to the end of this interview?
I think, and it may sound strange coming from a non-Omani for me to say this, but this is an absolutely beautiful country. It has very unique tourism assets. It's heavily investing in diversification of business, and does not have the global exposure that it deserves, because it has all these wonderful, unique things. And I think for people who come to Oman, they come again and they keep coming. It sells itself when you get here, but we need to build the awareness for those that don't know where we are and what we have to offer here, and to bring them here, because it truly is world class. I lived next door for 7 years and I never came here, not because I had a bad impression. I had no impression. There was no awareness, and I'm in the industry, and it tells you something. The beauty of that is that's the opportunity. So this is the time for Oman. Talking to the people in the hotel industry, 25 was one of the best years ever, if not particularly, and over the last few months it's strengthening even more. We are having the highest load factors we've had. We are carrying the highest proportion of point-to-point traffic that we have. Lots of foreign airlines have come and gone out of the country, and they always will. They're mercenaries when it comes here. They will only come here if they can make $1. If they can't make $1, they'll point their aircraft somewhere else. They have no allegiance to Oman. We are the national airline. It is both a burden, an opportunity, and a responsibility as a national carrier to enable the pillars of the 2040 economic vision that we have for the country. So the tourism industry demands that you have a strong national carrier. business and improving business ties with the country demands that you have a strong national carrier, because if we can't get the people in, we're not going to be able to deliver those things. So we are an enabler for those pillars. And, if you said last words to your listeners and your viewers, it would be, support your home carrier. It cares most about you than anybody else. We ain't going away. We understand the importance of carrying the Oman name around the world, which we do, and we are absolutely resolute in exploiting that and bringing the best that we can to Oman. And we thank you, because we have an incredibly loyal passenger segment. The percentage of repeat business we have on our airline is as high or higher than anywhere else I've ever worked in, other things I've seen in other airlines. So we're really grateful for that. Thank you. Please keep supporting us, and we're rooting for you as well and for the country, and we'll continue to do our best.
Con Korfiatis, thank you so much for your time. And we do wish you the best, because your success is the country's success, and it's our name. And we can't wait to hear more about your upcoming new routes, new planes and achievements, and may you reach your North Star of breaking even this year and just see profit from here on out. Inshallah.
Thank you, Talal.
Thank you for your time.
Really enjoyed it. Thank you.